A very good morning, all my dear students. I am Pallavi Dhole. Welcomes you all in this today's lecture of programming with Python. From this today's lecture onward, we are going to start our new unit, that is unit number 6, that is which is based on the concept file input output handling and the exception handling concept in Python programming language. Means basically the input output operations means how to print the messages on the screen, then how to read the various input from the command prompt, so such like. So it is called as the input output operations, which is basically happens in the Python programming language. And the exception handling, which is already we will studied this concept in Java programming also. So to catch the runtime errors in the Python programming language, for that the exception handling concept is basically included in the Python programming language. Now the basically the file input output handling, let us discuss one in detail. Very first is the input output operations, that is printing to the screen, how your message or the particular variable is will printed on the screen. The simplest way to produce output is using the print statement, where you can pass 0 or more expressions separated by commas. This function converts the expressions you pass into a string and write the result to standard output as follow. So this is the basic example which will print the message on the command prompt, that is Python is really a great language. Double quote complete comma, then in double quote again, isn't it? Okay, and the question mark. So whatever you are included in a double quotation, that is specifically printed on the command prompt. So the Python is really a great language, isn't it? Okay, तो यहाँ पर जो आपको डबल कोटेशन के अंदर, ओके, यहाँ पर फर्स्ट डबल कोटेशन के अंदर एक मैसेज है, देन कॉमा एंड देन डबल कोटेशन के अंदर सेकेंड मैसेज है. सो दैट विल बी joined together and printed on the command prompt. Okay, so Python is really a great language, isn't it? That is printed on the command prompt. So whatever basically included in a command prompt is same as will be printed on the command prompt itself. So as it is printed on the command prompt. Now the reading keyboard inputs means जो हमने first पढ़ा, that is the printing to the screen, means how your message will be printed on the command prompt. Now how to read the input from the command prompt or from the keyboard. So reading keyboard input, Python provides two inbuilt functions to read a line of text from standard input, which by default comes from the keyboard. These functions are raw input and the second one is the input. तो देखिए मैं आपको एक बात बताती हूँ कि जब भी हमने सी प्रोग्रामिंग की बात की थी, तो सी प्रोग्रामिंग के अंदर हमने देखा था इनपुट के लिए स्कैनएफ फंक्शन. ओके, देन सी प्लस प्लस में देखा हमने सी इन ऑपरेटर. ओके, जावा के अंदर हमने देखा बफर, वो जो सिस्टम डॉट आउट डॉट प्रिंट एल एन, तो आउटपुट के लिए रहता है, लेकिन बफर रीडर इनपुट स्ट्रीम रीडर सिस्टम डॉट इन. तो सिस्टम डॉट इन बेसिकली दिस ऑपरेटर इज यूज टू रीड द input from the command prompt. These are the three basic languages which is basically use this scanf, cin and system.in for reading the input from the command prompt. But now in this Python programming language, two basic functions we have to use here, that is the raw input and the input. Okay, so Python provides two inbuilt functions to read a line of text from the standard input, which by default come from the keyboard. Okay, the raw input function, very first is the raw input function. So the raw input in bracket prompt functions read one line from standard input and return it as a string. So removing the trailing new line. So I again repeat this. The raw underscore input in bracket prompt function read one line from standard input and return it as a string. Okay, so जो भी कुछ आप read करोगे that will be written in the form of the string. So it will remove the trailing new line. Okay, so here see the output. str equal to raw underscore input, enter your input, then print received input is double quote comma str. So whatever the variable is there, that will be separated by comma, and whatever you want to print the message on the command prompt or on the screen, that will be enclosed in a double quotation. So जो आपका variable है that will be not in enclosed in a सिंगल कोटेशन. तो जो सिंगल कोटेशन में आप डालते हो वैसे की वैसा ही आपका प्रिंट होता है, बट यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट दी str. So it is a variable, so it is not enclosed in the double quotation. So as it is, you have to place in the print function or print line. So here जो आपको यहाँ पे दिख रहा है, so raw input enter your input. ओके, सो एंटर योर इनपुट के बाद आपको क्या डालना है, आपका इनपुट डालना है विच इज़ इन द फॉर्म ऑफ द स्ट्रिंग. सो सी हियर द प्रॉम्प्ट यू एंटर एनी स्ट्रिंग and it would display same string on the screen. When I type hello python and exclamatory, its output is like this. So जब भी आपका ये हिट होगा, ये स्टेटमेंट जब भी आपका हिट होगा, that time you have to print or read the कंटेंट फ्रॉम द कीबोर्ड. तो कीबोर्ड से आप जो भी कुछ एंटर करोगे वैसे के वैसे आपको वो उस लाइन पे दिखेगा. एंड नाउ वेन एवर यू आर यूजिंग द प्रिंट लाइन, सो इट विल प्रिंट विद द हेल्प ऑफ द प्रिंट लाइन. ओके, सो रिसीव्ड इनपुट इज वॉट एवर यहाँ पे जो आपने यहाँ पे रीड किया, दैट विल बी प्रिंटेड ऑन द कमांड प्रॉम्प्ट एज इट इज. Okay, so this is the first method used in case of Python programming language, that is the raw underscore input method. Okay, next is the input function. The input function is the another method which is basically used to read the content from the keyboard. The input prompt function is equivalent to raw underscore input comma, except that it assumes the input is a valid Python expressions and return the evaluated results to you. Okay, the input prompt function is equivalent to raw input, except that it assumes that the input is a valid Python expression and returns the evaluated results to you. So here str equal to input in bracket enter your input. Okay, that will be the message, and then print received input is str. Okay, so here the expression you have to given. तो दिस इज़ द डिफरेंस बिटवीन द रॉ इनपुट एंड द इनपुट. रॉ इनपुट में आपको सिर्फ इनपुट रॉ ही रहेगा, लेकिन इनपुट फंक्शन में आप कोई भी एक्सप्रेशंस दे सकते हो. सो वट एवर द एक्सप्रेशंस इज देयर, तो एक्सप्रेशन इवैल्यूएट होने के बाद आपकी जो वैल्यूज रहेंगे दैट विल बी प्रिंटेड ऑन द कमांड प्रॉम्प्ट. ओके, so str equal to input enter your input. So here see, enter your input in bracket x into 5 for x in a range 2 10 2. So that will print a message on the command prompt 10 20 30 40. Okay, so that will be the range. So x into 5 जो भी आपका output है that will be in the range of 2 10 and 2. Okay, so that will print the message on the command prompt 10 20 30 and 40. Okay, so this is the basic difference between the raw input and the input. So in the input, yeah, you can give the expressions also, so that will be a valid expression, valid Python expression, and returns the evaluated results to you. Then opening and the closing file. So opening and closing file, how to open and closing the files in the Python programming language. Until now, you have been reading and writing to the standard input and output. Now, we will see how to use the actual data files. Python provides the basic functions and methods necessary to manipulate files by default. So you can do most of the file manipulation using a file object. Then the open function. The open function. Before you can read or write a file, you can to open it using the Python built-in open function. This function creates a file object which will be utilized to call other support method associated with it. Okay, so using the open function, you can basically open any file in a Python programming language. This function creates a file object which would be utilized to call other support method associated with it. Then the open function, how it will be work. Before you can read or write a file, you have to open it using Python's built-in open function. Okay, this is important. This function creates a file object which would be utilized to call other supports methods associated with it. Then the syntax is file object equal to open in bracket file underscore name, access mode and buffering. Here are parameters details. So here is file name. Very first is the file name. The file name argument is a string value that contain the name of the file that you want to access. Next is the access underscore mode. The access mode determines the mode in which the file has to be opened, that is read, write, append, etc. A complete list of possible values in a given below in the table. This is an optional parameter and the default file access mode is read. Okay, then see the very second one is the access mode. So you can open in a read, write, append. अगर आपने ये नहीं भी दिया तो this is optional. So by default it will be open your file in a read mode only. Then last one is the buffering. If the buffering value is set to 0, no buffering takes place. If the buffering value is 1, line buffering is performed while accessing a file. If you specify the buffering value as an integer greater than 1, then buffering action is performed with the indicated buffer size. If negative, the buffer size is the system default behavior. So here, if the buffering value is set to 0, no buffering takes place. If the buffering value is 1, the line buffering is performed while accessing the file. If you specify the buffering value as an integer greater than 1, then the buffering action is performed with the indicated buffer size. And if it is a negative, then the buffer size in the system is default. So this is called as the default behavior. Okay, so having 4 parameters, 0 value, 1 value, then greater than 1 value and the negative value. So 4 values you have to basically provided for the buffering. Here is the list of different modes of opening a file. How the file will be open in a different mode. See here, a very first is the R. Opens a file for reading only. The file pointer is placed at the beginning of the file. This is the default mode. Then RB, open a file for reading only in a binary format. So RB का meaning है, R means read and B means binary. So open a file for reading only in a binary format. The file pointer is placed at the beginning of the file. This is the default mode. Then R plus, open a file for both reading and writing. The file pointer placed at the beginning of the file. Okay, so R plus, that open a file for both reading and writing. Then RB plus, open a file for both reading and writing in a binary format. the file pointer placed at the beginning of the file. Next, W, that opens a file for writing only, overwrites the file if the file exists. If the file does not exist, create a new file for writing. And WB, that is open a file for writing only in a binary format, overwrite the file if the file exists. If the file does not exist, creates a new file for the writing purpose. So these are the different modes. Again, W plus open a file for both writing and reading. Overwrite the existing file if the file exists. If the file does not exist, create a new file for reading and writing. Then WB plus open a file for both writing and reading in a binary format. Overwrite the existing file if the file exists. If the file does not exist, create a new file for reading and writing. So that will be a WB plus. Then A, open a file for appending. The file pointer is at the end of the file if the file exists. That is, the file is in the append mode. If the file does not exist, it creates a new file for writing. Then AB, open a file for appending in a binary format. The file pointer is at the end of the file if the file exists. That is, the file is in the append mode. If the file does not exist, it creates a new file for the writing. So that is a AB. Then A plus, open a file for both appending and reading. The file pointer is at the end of the file if the file exists. The file open in a append mode. If the file does not exist, it creates a new file for the reading and writing purpose. Then AB plus, open a file for both appending and reading in a binary format. The file pointer is at the end of the file if the file exists. The file open in a append mode. If the file does not exist, it creates a new file for reading and writing. So these are the number of different modes of opening a file. So you just remember these all files, or remember this all mode just for the sake of your examinations point of view, क्योंकि आपको examinations में इसके differences जो है वो आपको पूछे जा सकते हैं. ओके, इन द पार्ट ऑफ MCQs. तो आपको एक्सप्लेनेशन दिया हुआ रहेगा और आपको नीचे मोड पूछे जाएंगे कि व्हाट विल बी द एग्जैक्ट मैच. ओके, नेक्स्ट is the file objects attribute. Once the file is open and you have one file object, you can get various informations related to that file. Here is the list of all attributes related to file object. So file dot closed returns true if file is closed, false otherwise. File dot closed returns true if file is closed, false otherwise. Then file dot mode return access mode with which file was opened. Then file dot name return name of the file, and file dot soft space return false if space explicitly required with a print true otherwise. Okay, so these are the different file objects attributes basically used in the Python programming language. So basically the example, how to open a file. See, fo equal to open, file name and the mode of the file, opening a file. So foo.text is the file name and wb is the mode of the file. Then print name of the file, fo.name. Print close or not, fo.closed. Then print opening mode, fo.mode, and then soft space flag, fo.soft space. तो यहाँ पर जो हमने यहाँ पर जो attributes यूज़ किए हैं उन सभी को हमने यहाँ पे यूज़ किया है. So this will produce the following output or result. So name of the file is foo.text, close or not false, opening mode wb, and soft space flag is 0 here. Okay, so in this way this will print the output on the command prompt using this all file objects attribute. So remember this file dot close returns true if file is closed, otherwise not, otherwise false. Pause dot mode return access mode with which file was opened. Okay, file dot name return the name of the file, and file dot soft space returns false if space explicitly required with the print or true otherwise. Okay, so this is the example related to this example. The next is the close method. So whatever the file is open, it is compulsory to close that file after the operations completion. तो जो भी आपके कुछ operations होते हैं उनको वो ख़त्म होने के बाद आपको आपके फाइल को क्लोज करना ज़रूरी है. The close method of a file object flushes any unwritten information and closes the file object, after which no more writing can be done. Okay, the close method of a file object flushes any unwritten information and closes the file object, after which no more writing can be done. Python automatically closes a file when the reference object of that file is reassigned to another file. It is a good practice to use the close method to close a file. Okay, so file object dot close, that will close the file whatever the opening file is there. So basically see here the example is fo equal to open foo dot text wb, then print name of the file fo dot name, then close open file fo dot close. Okay, so this will produces the following output. The name of the file is fo dot text, and then afterward you can close that file with the help of the object name and the close method that will close your file. Okay, so this is all about the file handling concept. So you can basically use the open function to open that file in a different mode whatever the specified by me, okay, in the slides. Then the file objects attribute file dot close, file dot mode, file dot name, and file dot soft space. With that the example is given, and then the last one is the close method which will use to close the particular open file. So this is all about the today's lecture. So in the next lecture we are dealing with the reading and the writing of the file handling. So जो भी input output operations है file related, that will be seen in the next lecture. So till then, thank you so much all of you. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you so much.